Hello and welcome to a slightly late Euros 2024 prediction video. We come off the back of Germany having trounced Scotland 5-1, and it wasn't even that close, to be honest. And so let's look into which teams we think are going to make it through the group stages, and then we'll follow this up with a round of 16 quarterfinals, semi-finals and final video in a separate video, because I am in the middle of doing some other work, so I might not be able to get through everything today. So we'll start off in Group A. Like we mentioned, we've just seen Germany thrash Scotland and look in really top form. If we look through their squad on the right hand side of the screen here, we've got the experienced Manuel Neuer and good backups in two top keepers. We've got Rudiger, Champions League winner, who was playing yesterday, alongside Jonathan Tah, and then Kimmich taking up a new role in the right back. These are all premium quality and premium and high level players who I think will stand Germany in good stead. In recent majors, Germany haven't been performing very well, but I would say, especially with the home support, they have a good chance of making it deep in this tournament. We can see that their manager Nagelsmann is rotating through with a good mix of young talent as well as very experienced players, playing players like Gross and Kroos alongside Musiala, and taking real advantage of players who are in form, such as Florian Wirtz. And we can see that he's also using Niklas Füllkrug, who's quite a good finisher, although didn't perform very well in the Champions League final. Clearly a big threat. So I would say it's not without reason to think that Germany will finish the group top. Now, with such a heavy defeat, I think we can safely say that Scotland have put themselves in position to possibly be bottom of this group. And then we'll move on to the second place team, which is Hungary, I think, from this squad. Now, I think it'll be close between Hungary and Switzerland, but I think one of the benefits Hungary have is they have a central star who they can play around in Szoboszlai, and a lot of their national team often they overperform quite, and I believe that's because they play like a club team. So most other teams basically pull players, I think, from different leagues who are playing overseas and showing good results, but the problem there is the chemistry isn't really there. Whereas I think a lot of the Hungary squad, apart from a few select players, are quite well known to each other, play together quite regularly and know each other quite a lot. So they've got Gulácsi in goal, who is an experienced veteran and one of the top keepers in the tournament. I will say that they've got quite experienced centre backs, notably Willi Orban, who I think will put on a good shift, as well as Marton Dardai, I believe, is in form. And then we've got their central player, essentially Szoboszlai, alongside, and I think he'll be the centre of their attack and creative midfield. Now, when we compare that to the potential second or third place team in Switzerland clearly have, I believe, better quality players overall. So if we look at their keeper, we've got Sommer and Körbel, both coming off good seasons. I would suggest they might go with Körbel given his form. However, Sommer is the more experienced keeper. If we look at their centre-backs, they've got winners in Akanji, and they've got good experience in Fabian Schär from Newcastle. And then we come on to their midfielders. They've got Zakaria, who's been playing well this season, Granit Xhaka coming off the unbeaten season with Leverkusen as well, and the ever-present Shaqiri, as well as their forwards of Mbolo, who's always been there, and Ndoye, who I believe has been performing quite well this season. So I think it'll be close between Hungary and Switzerland, but I will give Hungary the nod, with Switzerland making it one of the four third place teams to make it through. So moving on, we have Group B. So Group B is, I would say, probably one of the groups of death, and it's because you have poor Albania in a group of Spain, Croatia and Italy, all with historically great international experience, as well as, let's move back, because I should still give them their due diligence. We still have to talk through Scotland. I think Scotland's keeper, I think he did his best. I think his defence perhaps let him down a little bit. They have got quite an experienced, quite left side heavy defence, with Robertson and Tierney being one of the issues, and not really any right back threat or wing back threat from the right. They've got Scott McTominay, whose I think traditional position is actually better as one of the centre forward attacking midfielder positions, rather than here where he's used more as a CDM centre mid. They've got a quite solid CDM central midfielder in John McGinn, and I just think they don't offer very much up top. I think Che Adams has had a decent season and is a decent goal threat, but we saw that against Germany they're just not good enough really to make it far in the tournament. But my apologies, Scotland. I should really have done my due diligence. Anyway, moving on to Group B. So Group B, we have Spain, Croatia, and Italy. Now, Spain are coming into tournament with a decent rate of form, and they've got a really solid squad. I think them and Italy both suffer from the same problem of having a clear goal attacking threat. So Spain's keeper, solid. They've got David Raya, who's coming off a great season with Arsenal. They've got a good backup in Unai Simon, I think, as their second choice, who perhaps has had a good season in La Liga. They've got the extremely experienced and proven winner in Danny Carvajal, alongside his teammate in Nacho Fernandez. And they've got Marc Cucurella on the left, I would say is probably most likely. But you might actually start Grimaldo given the season he's had with Leverkusen. Again, going on that unbeaten run. Their midfield, I think, is probably where they've got the greatest talent. They've got Rodri, probably one of, if not the best, central defensive midfielder, with the creative Pedri alongside Mikel Merino, who's had a really good season as well. And then up top, I think Morata is likely to be the striker that they center around with Lamine Yamal and Ferran Torres. They've just got quite good attacking threats. It's just they don't have that central, Harry Kane, Lewandowski style player. If Morata can step up, or if he's at least even decent, I think Spain stand to have a good run in this tournament. The ever-present Croatia always make it deep, always make a game with it. Very good run of form. I think they're suffering from being a slightly aged squad, relying on a lot of experience. They've got quite a young keeper. I say young, he's 29, but in Livakovic, alongside Gavadio, who is solid. And I think their defense has always been quite good, and they tend to grind out games. You've got Modric and Kovacic really in the central midfield positions, really marshalling it and being able to provide a good backbone. I think that's why their defense and also passing out from the defensive positions is probably one of their biggest strengths. They've got Vlasic and Pasalic, as well as Kramaric and a return from Perisic. So I think, given this, I think Croatia actually do have what it takes to make it out of this group, with their closest challengers, I think, being Italy. Now, Italy have a decent run of form. I think they have a question whether or not Donnarumma versus Vicario in goal. I think Donnarumma is their current number one, and given previous international experience, I would probably go with that. They've got a solid defense. They've always had a solid defense. The old guard in Chiellini, Bonucci, who won their last Euros, has obviously left now. But I think in their place, you've got a decent backline here. However, given that you've lost that experience and how solid and intimidating they were as a centre-back pairing and as a defensive force, I think this is where one of their weaknesses comes in. If we look at their central midfield, this is where they're a little bit weak in terms of going forwards, I think. You've got Jorginho and Barella, I think, who offer quite good defensive-minded midfield presence, but they're just not that creative, Jude Bellingham, Foden type midfielders. And Scamacca is probably their most significant attacking threat. his brilliant run of form with Atalanta, winning the Europa League, I think stands him in good stead. But I think we've not really seen this at international level yet. Chiesa's been off form, so I feel like if they don't catch fire during this tournament, I think they could fall foul to Albania. Now, Albania is the dark horse of this group. Tom Garrett from Pitchside has put his backing into Albania, and I think that's reasonable. I think they've had a good, decent run of form. They've got Strakosha as a probably primary keeper in my opinion. I don't know if they'll be playing that, and I must admit I don't know a lot of their players. I've seen Hysaj, I believe he's a left back in Serie A, unless he's moved along. But mainly it's Asani that we need to watch out for as a potential rising star and a sort of breakout. We've also got Broja, who's gone from Chelsea to Fulham, I believe, at least on loan. So their attack is okay. I think scoring goals is Albania's biggest problem, but they are solid defensively. And in international tournaments, as we've seen with Italy in the past, your defense stands you in good stead. I think it goes defense, overall talent, and then luck as your top three things you want. And so having a solid defense, I think, stands you in good stead. Looking at this group, unfortunately, I don't stand alongside Tom, and I do think Albania will go out. I think all three of these teams will go through. As for who will be placed where, I think Croatia might actually sneak into being top of the group, with Spain second and Italy third. So that's 2 of the 4 third place finishes. Moving on to Group C. So Group C, we start off, this is, where we are. We start off with Slovenia, so let's look at our competition. Slovenia, I think, probably have one of the weaker squads in the tournament. They've got a solid keeper in Oblak, probably one of, if not the best keepers. I've said that maybe once so far, but I genuinely believe Oblak is probably the best keeper overall in isolation. I don't know much about their backline, so I'm not going to comment on it. I don't know much about their midfield apart from Ilicic, who's probably their experienced, veteran of the squad. I don't know. I believe he's playing out in one of the minor leagues, so sort of like Turkish league or Saudi league, perhaps. He might still be in Serie A. I can't really remember. So the breakout star from this Slovenian squad is Benjamin Sesko. Highly touted, a great season in RB Leipzig, a big target for Arsenal. I feel like he might have a breakout tournament, but I don't think he'll be enough to maybe push them over the line. Looking next, we have Denmark. Now, Denmark, I think, have been in a relatively poor run of form. They've, at international tournament, they didn't perform well at the Qatar World Cup. And they don't really have a reason for that, though. They have a solid squad. Kasper Schmeichel is a reliable keeper, I would say. They've got Anderson and Christensen in their defence, with Kjær being, the vanguard and the veteran here. We've got midfielders of Christian Eriksen, perhaps shouldn't play too big a role given his past and given his health issues. I don't think he has the stamina to really be the mainstay. But Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, I think, is a decent servant to Spurs, and I think he could do a good job. And they've got the young star in Højlund, who's had a middling season, I would say most people would agree, for Manchester United, but he showed glimpses of being able to take that on. And we've got Damsgaard, who's a young up and coming winger, I think, who proved himself quite decently in Serie A. Haven't heard much about him this season, so it would suggest that perhaps he's fallen off a little bit in terms of his rich reign of form, but maybe he'll recover it. International tournaments are the place to find it. Next, moving on to Serbia. Serbia are one of those teams that tend to do well despite not having too many names in their squad. They've got, I think, an experienced keeper in Rakovic. Their defense, nothing sticks out to me here. Does anything stick out to me in their midfield? No. Vlahovic, I think, is the Juventus striker who I think could have a good, very good tournament. Mitrovic has moved to the Saudi league and has been in a reasonable vein of form, and we've always got to watch out for Kostic. And then coming on to jolly old England. Now, this makes for really poor reading here. Okay, guys, this is awful. We're coming off a loss to Iceland, a win against Bosnia. Okay, great, but a draw, loss, draw, and like 2 losses and 2 draws in our last 5 games, and not necessarily against top opponents, I think is concerning to say the least. However, I will back England to make it at least out of the group stages. We have an experienced keeper who's had to face a lot of relegation battles, shots. One of the better defenses in the Premier League. I think Everton were maybe 2nd or 3rd in the Premier League. This is where we're probably the weakest, and like I said, defense is one of the things that wins you a tournament, and our defense is looking quite weak coming into this tournament. We have Kyle Walker. He's lost that little bit of pace, I think, as he's aged. He's not had the greatest season. He's obviously won the Premier League, but I think we're not thinking about the group stages or the early knockout stages. I'm looking for England, as the bookies' favourite, to make it a very deep run. And when you make a deep run, you're going to come up against players who are rapid. Okay, we're talking about players like Mbappe coming down the wings at you, Musiala, Sane, those types of players who are just going to run at you and have that yard of pace. And if you've lost that yard of pace in the past year or so for whatever reason, health, mental health, whatever, that puts you at a slightly disadvantaged position, in my opinion. So, with that being said, that's our right side. Despite saying all of that, I think our right side is fine. I do worry, however, that our left side, we're relying on an injured, perhaps not match-ready Luke Shaw on coming back, because otherwise we're relying on a right-sided player in Kieran Trippier to be our left back. And our biggest problem is that overlapping run. So it limits our choices, and it limits Southgate's choices if you don't have a wing back who is able to overlap with your wingers. That's one of our biggest issues. We'll come on to this on an England-only episode after watching our first game. Mark Gahey, I think, looked awful against Iceland, to be honest. I hope he comes into his own. And I'm concerned about John Stones' health. If John Stones is even 80% healthy, he has to play. And he is our biggest sort of, defensive stalwart. I don't know why Dunk was brought. I would have thought that you would have brought Branthwaite instead, but Southgate, I suppose. That's probably one of the biggest decisions I disagree with. And we have Trent, who's not really a defender in this tournament. He's more likely to play that in front of midfield, maybe right-sided central mid CDM position. I would say our midfielders, we have a dearth of talent here. We actually have a selection problem here. We've got Declan Rice, has to start. He's had a brilliant season. He is probably one of the only properly defensively minded midfielders, but I think he should play the 8 position. One of the running back and forth, can hold up play, give the defense a bit of backline, but also be an attacking threat. And he needs to be alongside a CDM type player, such as either John Stones, if you think you have enough centre backs, which I don't think we do, or with Trent being a right-sided CDM. So if you had Trent on the right side of the CDM, and then you have Rice slightly ahead of him on the left, and then you have this attacking midfielder position who obviously has to be Bellingham. He's on pace to win the Ballon d'Or, I believe. He's won 2 cups in his first season with the La Liga and the Champions League. One of many, I believe, that he's going to win with Real Madrid. I think he has to be our number 10, which creates a problem, because then what do you do with Cole Palmer and Phil Foden? Phil Foden traditionally has been brilliant at club level, but I think internationally has struggled. I think that's partly because of the position and partly because of the system that he's being played in. Do you bring him on as an impact sub? The same for Cole Palmer. Brilliant season. However, he kind of needs to be the main star. You need to play around him if you're going to play him. Now, this might be controversial, but to me, I think you might have them play the central forward position over Kane. Kane's looking a little bit leggy. You might want to save him for his impact later on. And I think that it solves your problem if you take Kane out of the squad and you put Foden or Palmer as a central forward. And then on the left, you can have Anthony Gordon. And on the right, you can have Bukayo Saka. And I think that solves a lot of your problems. Now, if you do have to have Kane there, you might have to have the conversation. Do you start two of your potential Premier League Team of the Season players in Palmer and Foden on the bench, right? Because ultimately, it's about how the team plays. We've had a whole golden generation, you know, with Gerrard and Lampard, of trying to force players into a squad that just doesn't suit them. And so, I think if you are going to start Kane, which, if I'm erring on the side of caution, he didn't look great against Iceland. Might have been because he was tired. Might be because he's getting on in age. Might just be because he's, you know, just not well rested enough. Who knows? If you are starting Kane up top, and I think Gordon suits Kane's play better. Especially if you're not going to have that overlapping run and you want somebody who can help on defense. I think Gordon and Saka have to be your wingers in that case, right? And I think if Foden and Palmer can, you know, and I'm not accusing them of anything, I'm hoping that they're able to remove their ego from the situation and think, hey, if you had half an hour left and you can bring on Foden and Palmer to change the game on the wings when the enemy team play too many games, when the opposition is slightly leggy, maybe a little bit tired, draw a couple of fouls, use that creativity and pace to just, you know, burst onto the scene, I think that stands you in good stead. And I think that will beat a lot of teams. It has to be a very brave decision to do so. And then we also have potential on the right side or left side or central attacking midfield in Eze and Jared Bowen. And I think Ollie Watkins can be a good deputy as well to Kane if you need that striking force. I think our midfield and striker and our individual talent is probably at its peak. It's just our defense and our luck is never really there. Despite saying all of that, I think that England will make it out of this squad, out of this group I mean. And I think your second place team will be Slovenia. And I don't think Denmark or Serbia will get one of the third place places. We'll revisit that. I think if they are going to finish, I think it will be, Denmark third and Serbia fourth in this group. Moving on to Group D. We start off with the Netherlands. Decent run of form, very decent squad. They've got Bleo, they've got Vlekken, who are, you know, ignore the thunder going on outside. It's a bad day apparently in jolly old London. Very grey day. They've got solid defense. Now, like I said, defense wins tournaments, and Netherlands have a defensive-minded coach in Koeman with a defense that is probably the envy of every other squad in this tournament. You've got De Ligt, you've got Van Dijk, you've got Ake, you've got De Vries, you've got Van der Ven. Like, honestly, just give us some. Give us Mickey Van der Ven. Like, honestly, why are you stealing all the centre backs? So that nothing needs to be said about their defense. They have the best defense in the tournament, in my opinion. Moving on to their midfield, we've had Wijnaldum, we've got Gravenberch, we've got a decent, if not, so this is where I think, you know, Netherlands might be let down a little bit. I don't think their midfield is something too worrying, and also their attack. You've got Jeremy Frimpong here. I think he is probably one of your better chances. You've got Depay and Gakpo probably leading the line. You've got Weghorst, we've seen a good finisher, but not necessarily, you know, a ball playing forward. You've got Xavi Simons, who I think has done a good job, and I've seen flashes of him in PSG during the Champions League. I think there's a disconnect. I think your attack is, if we're going on stars, I would say you've got a 5-star defense with a 2-star midfield and a 3 to 4-star attack in Netherlands. And let's not forget, they are in a group with France. I would put France as the favourites for the tournament. I know, boring, but it is France. They've got Maignan, who's had a good season. They've got Areola as a backup. Their defence is solid with good depth. I don't know why Deschamps doesn't like playing Saliba. I would say he's probably their best defender, but apparently he prefers Upamecano. So, hey, all power to you, man. If you guys want to do that, do that. You've got Theo Hernandez, you've got Konate. You've got a solid defence with good backup options, unlike England. Like I said, that's one of the key things. Next key thing, they've got solid midfield with defensive options in Camavinga, Chouameni, and bringing Kante back. I know people might see Kante as a bit of a weakness in bringing requesting, but that's a veteran presence who knows how to win and has won at the biggest stage at World Cup, Champions League level, Premier League level. Like, he's won everything. And you've got the creative midfielder in Griezmann, who can float, play everywhere, and is elevated in international competition. Then you've got the ever-present Giroud with Mbappe and Dembele and Kolo Muani. Like, all of this, look at their whole team. Their whole team, I would say you've got a 5-star defense, perhaps I would say a 5-star midfield and a 5-star attack. Like, there's no reason why you don't think, I don't understand the bookies thinking that England are favourites. It has to be France. France are the favourites. Moving on, Poland. Now, oddly, there's not a lot of hype around Poland, and I don't really understand why. They're not performing particularly well, I think, at international tournaments recently. But you've got Wojciech Szczesny, solid keeper. You've got defense of Kirill, I think, has had a good season for Arsenal. Perhaps that's where you're being let down a little bit. Not too much to say about their midfield. You've got Zielinski, you've got Grosicki, you've got Szymanski. They're okay, I would say. Again, if we're doing the star system, which I've just introduced halfway through this video, but essentially I would say you've got maybe a 2-star defense, a 2-star midfield, and a 2-star attack. So maybe I understand why the hype, but the 2-star attack goes instantly up to 4 stars because you've got one of the greatest strikers of all time in Robert Lewandowski, who will score you goals. And I think one of the dark horses in the competition, Austria, they have got, not much needs to be said about their goalkeeper because I don't know enough about it, but they have, like I said, they've got a solid defense. I think throughout any competition they've always had solid defense. Their midfield, you've got Sabitzer, who's been playing well this season, having returned to Dortmund. You've got Baumgartner, who's been putting in shifts, I think, for RB Leipzig. And then your forwards, I would say they're probably going to be carried by the midfield. And I would say, obviously, I think France will top this group. I think you'll have Netherlands second, and I think you'll have Austria and then Poland. And then I think they will snag one of the third place positions, so I think Austria will make it through. Moving on to the Group E, our penultimate group. So you've got Ukraine. I think Ukraine might actually be a dark horse in this competition. If we look at their goalkeeper, they've got Lunin, Champions League winner. Obviously didn't play in the final game, but held them throughout the season. Probably one of the unsung heroes of the Real Madrid squad. You got Zinchenko, perhaps not great at club level, has sort of fallen out of favour at Arsenal, but they've got a deep defence. You got Yarmolenko. He previously had great form. Again, international competition is where you rediscover a little bit of form. You got Siganov, who I know has been doing quite well. Got Mikhailo Mudryk. I think he burst on the scene for his play. I think is it Dynamo Zagreb he played at, or Shakhtar Donetsk. But essentially, I think this competition could be where Mikhailo Mudryk rediscovers a little bit of form. Looking at Slovakia, we've got Dubravka. I would say we've seen too much of him at Newcastle to say that he's solid. I don't think he is, but he's got a decent defender in Skriniar in front of him. In midfield, we've got Kuka here, Lobotka, pretty solid. And I must say I don't know too much about their attack. I would say that I think I give Slovakia a decent chance. Talking about Belgium, they've just come off the back of their golden generation falling off. I think any generation that has Lukaku in it has to be downgraded from golden to at least silver, possibly bronze. I just don't rate Lukaku. I don't rate his work ethic and his finishing, especially on the big stage, awful. You've got Casteels as your keeper, I think. Very good season, very good keeper. Got a bit of an aging defense here. I don't see a lot here that I think the Bast and Tietê might sort of, announce themselves on the international stage if they have a good game. You've got Munier, which for some reason they don't have a picture. I think their midfield is probably their strongest area. You've got Onana, who I believe is with Everton. You've got Trossard, you've got Tielemans and De Bruyne and Witsel, all very solid midfielders. And Lukaku still in your squad. If you're going to be relying on Lukaku, I'm sorry, you're not making it far in the competition. However, you do have De Ketelaere, you have Bakayoko, you have Doku and Openda. I think, please don't put, actually, you know what, do it, because I don't want you guys to make it too far. So Belgium, I think, decent. Romania, I don't know much about their keepers. I know about Dragushin. I think he's shown glimpses of being decent. I think a little bit off the pace in the Premier League, if I'm honest. You've got the infamous Hadji, not that Hadji, and you've got the reincarnation of Puskás. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's what I'm going to do because I think that will piss a lot of Hungarians off, specifically you, Julian. I don't know. I'm not too impressed with Romania. They're struggling to score. I would say in this group, Belgium will top it, just based on form, and I think Ukraine will be second. I think I'll go Belgium, Ukraine, and then Slovakia and Romania. Slovakia third, Romania fourth. So they're one of the ones vying for the final. So we've got one more third place position. So we're saying it's either going to be Slovakia or, so far, I think Slovakia or I think I said Denmark third. So Slovakia, Denmark, and then the final group is Group F. So Group F, I think, has the second favourites. I don't think you should put England as the favourites, and I don't think they're even second. I think they're third, and I think it's because Portugal have quietly come into this tournament with probably one of the best forms and squads available. Let's go through it. They've got Diogo Costa, solid keeper. Their defense is ridiculous. You've got Inacio, you've got Ruben Dias, you've got the veteran 41-year-old Pepe here, you've got Nelson Semedo, you've got Nuno Mendes, you've got João Cancelo. All of them would be starting in any other squad as your defensive positions. In midfield, you've got solid defense positions in Palhinha. You've got winners and creativity in Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva. You've got people who should be but aren't in the Man City squad in Mateus Nunes. You've got Vitinha, you've got Ruben Neves, right? Solid midfield. And then attack, you have CR7. I think he's just there for clout, let's be honest. I don't think you should rely on CR7. I think he could be an impact sub, perhaps give you a good 10-15 minutes. That's not to discount his legacy, but I do think that playing in the Saudi league and not playing at top level competition for a while takes that out of you. You've got João Felix, who I don't think you should start. You've got Jota and Rafael Leao. I think that's a solid front line. I would give that maybe a 4-star. You've got 5-star, 5-star, 4-star. So I think they're the favourites, and I think they'll top this group easily. You've got Czechia. Again, I don't know too much about Czechia. I know about Kufal. I've watched him a couple times. I must say, don't know much about their midfield. You've got Souček, I think, who was pretty solid in the Prem for a little while. And in terms of attack, you've got Patrick Schick, though. And I think that's one of your, I think dark horse picks, especially in this group. I think they might be my second place. Who've got in Georgia, I don't know. I'll admit, I don't think I know anyone in Georgia other than Kvaratskhelia. Where is he? I don't even know where he is. But essentially, I think it's quite easy to think that Georgia will be last in this group. They might surprise us. And I think Turkey, they've disappointed, I think, recently in international competition. They've got quite an aging squad, I think. None of their young players have announced themselves too much on the scene. You've got Çalhanoğlu, who's been the best midfielder in the Italian league. Maybe D'Alessandro and Gusset alongside Yildiz, who's an up and coming star. I think he can announce himself here. Do I think they have enough to get over Georgia? I think so. I think I'll put Turkey 4th, Georgia 3rd, with Portugal and Czechia making it through. So, Turkey, Slovakia, and Denmark. Who do I think is going to get the final position? You know what? I think it'll be Turkey. I think it'll be Turkey because I think that they have enough to, you know, upset a couple of teams. And they've got a couple of young stars. Anyway, that's my predictions for the group stages at this Euros. Keep watching for what I think is going to happen next in terms of the knockout stages. And yeah, perhaps we'll get Julian in on that. And catch you guys next time. Peace.